Good morning. I'm honored to be here speaking with you, and would like to thank Sophie for inviting me to be here, and thank you for making me feel very welcome on my first trip to Taiwan. If you're not familiar with O'Reilly Media, we're best known as the publisher of the iconic Animal books on computer software and technology, with funny-looking animals on the covers. We also publish a series of consumer books, The Missing Manual, and a magazine for do-it-yourselfers and tech enthusiasts called Make Magazine. In addition to books, we also run more than a dozen conferences each year, mostly in the San Francisco area, and mostly about technology. But we also produce the Tools of Change for Publishing conference every February right in New York, and we've also done one in Frankfurt with the Frankfurt Book Fair. This is a quote from science fiction writer William Gibson, and it's a great way to describe what we do at O'Reilly. There's a lot we can learn, not by guessing what might be, but by trying harder to interpret what's already happening. That's what I'm going to talk about today, in terms of some of the things that are on the O'Reilly radar that are keeping us excited about what's on the horizon for publishing. A lot of what I'll talk about today relates to technology. And it's important to remember that this, what you see on the screen, is also very much in technology. Books are devices for sharing ideas, and their development over time is not much different from how most technologies develop. These are just a few of the features that have been added to those devices over time, and are a reminder that books did not always look the way they have during our lifetimes, and they will not always look or act the way they do now. For most of the history of books, to publish meant to read aloud in public, and for most of the history of the written word, reading was a very social activity. Our modern habit of private, silent reading would seem very strange to a visitor from 300 years ago. You can see echoes of that social past watching someone's lips move while they read a book on the train. For some examples, consider that word spacing developed over 300 years, starting in around 1100. Or consider another great innovation in Western publishing, punctuation. The hyphen first appeared in the 11th century in Europe and took another 200 years to reach England. The colon first appeared in the late 14th century. The written word is one of the most powerful technologies humans have ever created. And like any technology, it changes and evolves and is subject sometimes to rather disruptive changes. This is one of the original early warning systems. This little guy is not in a coal mine, but a few of his ancestors probably were. And I'm sure they would agree that what was a faint signal to the coal miners was anything but faint to them. Much of what I talk about today is based on our experience as a publishing company, one that sees itself as having a bit in common with those canaries. It's easy to dismiss a lot of our experiences at O'Reilly to the subject matter of our books or the technical nature of our audience. But we believe that we are very much like a canary in a coal mine. First, the bad news from that third page. This is Nielsen BookScan point-of-sale data for the entire U.S. retail computer book market, not just for O'Reilly. This data goes back to 2006. If it went back further, you would see that sales in our part of the market, as measured using printed books sold at retail, has been flat or declining for nearly a decade, and doesn't look to be getting better anytime soon. But there is good news on the digital side, including statistics like these from the International Digital Publishing Forum, which suggests that we are nowhere near satisfying the existing demand, much less the constantly growing demand for digital books and other digital media. Here's data from O'Reilly.com showing the growth of ebook sales over the past 18 months. Here's a more direct comparison showing print versus ebook revenue during the past 18 months. You can see from the red line showing ebook sales that they now outsell print books on O'Reilly.com by more than 3-to-1. We are not even into the fourth quarter, and we're already ahead of last year's total year ebook revenue. And much of this doesn't include our mobile sales, which have really picked up in the past couple months. At the current rate, our ebook sales for 2009 will end the year more than 75% above 2008, and 2008 was more than 50% above 2007. While downloadable ebooks are performing very well for us, they are just a small piece of where much of the opportunity lies for new ways of doing the job that books have long done so well, to transmit ideas. And it's an opportunity that matters to us in the US, and it matters here in Taiwan. It's doubtful this man here has a laptop or an e-reader device, much less much of a bookshelf at home, but like billions of people around the world coming online, he has a mobile phone, and one that is probably connected to the web. Much of the opportunity that we see in the future is happening in places like this. According to IBM research, there will be 1 billion web-enabled cell phones by 2011. And in India, cell phones already outnumber PCs by 10-to-1. I saw this item in the news last week, demonstrating the government here in Taiwan also believes digital reading is a real opportunity. According to the One Laptop Per Child project, 97% of adolescents alive today live in the developing world. More than half of India's population is under the age of 25. And in the same way that many emerging markets skipped landline telephones altogether, it's quite likely they will skip building out a costly and often inefficient retail distribution system in favor of something natively digital and very much mobile friendly. By 2011, some forecasts such as this one, reported in a recent issue of The Economist, show that mobile broadband will surpass fixed broadband as the primary way that people access the internet around the world. At the Web 2.0 Summit a few weeks ago, Morgan Stanley Managing Director Mary Meeker did a forecast of internet trends and made a startling case for mobile as the next computing stage, like mainframe, mini-computers, then PCs, then the web. This is a slide from her deck. If you thought the web took off fast, compare the adoption rate for AOL, America Online, and Netscape, in yellow and blue on the right, with the adoption rate for the iPhone and iPod Touch in green on the left. And one more from Mary, showing that each of these new stages reaches 10 times the users as the previous one. The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. There's a lot of people reading on mobile devices. Sales data for our books shows these are not merely substitution sales. These are often new customers who would not otherwise purchase the print book, as well as customers who are purchasing both print and digital versions. We've seen a similar trend with Safari Books Online, our joint venture subscription service with Pearson. And we have nearly a decade of data to look at. The print market is in terrible shape for us, but Safari has been growing 40% year on year. And these are additive sales. Our sales volume in the print market relative to other publishers has steadily increased since Safari launched in 2000. At O'Reilly, we are moving very quickly into mobile publishing, in particular on the iPhone. Here is our page in iTunes in the US store. Note there are 51 more pages of apps. We have more than 500 apps in the App Store worldwide, with more to come in the weeks and months ahead. At first, we weren't sure whether people would really want to read books on often complex technologies, books that include complex formatting like tables, computer code, and figures on a mobile phone. But as you can see from this review, there absolutely are readers who want and read and buy these books on their smartphones. This review says, please release all of your books on iPhone. This is an excellent resource to have handy. 5 stars, that's the highest rating. Note the high resolution, full color images, as well as the blue text, which is of course a hyperlink. We released our very first app just about a year ago through a partnership with Lexical, makers of the popular Stanza iPhone app. It was a previous edition of this one, iPhone The Missing Manual by New York Times technology columnist David Pogue, which we replaced with a newer version this summer. But during the lifetime of that app, we sold more units of the app than of the printed book. And this is a printed book that is not only the top seller among consumer titles about the iPhone, it was the best seller for all computer books during the Christmas holiday season last year, and the number 6 computer book in the US overall during that period. Here is a relative comparison in terms of units sold of the app version in green, the print version in blue, and the next best-selling book in lighter blue on the right. This is measured by units, not revenue, but it helps illustrate the size of the opportunity. And here's some data from the first set of 17 other apps that we put out. The blue segment represents units sold as iPhone apps. The red segment, the units sold at retail as measured by Nielsen BookScan. You can see that for several of the titles, there were more units sold on iPhone than in print at retail. So there are definitely people reading and, importantly, buying books on their mobile phones. But one of the most important characteristics of these new mobile markets for digital media is that they are truly global markets. These are the recent rankings for the free light version of that iPhone Missing Manual app. The light version contains 1 chapter as a sample, with a call to action to buy the full version. The list actually goes further down than this, but this is the most I could fit on screen to take a screenshot. That free app is among the top free book apps in nearly every country where iPhones are available. That is an opportunity to convert sales in parts of the world that we cannot economically market to through traditional channels. Here's a geographic breakdown of sales of our iPhone apps by country. This list actually goes down quite a bit further, but again, this is the biggest I could get on the screen at once. While overall sales in any individual country are often quite small, when added together, they make up more than the sales in the US. This is how the sales break down overall around the world. Note that 56% of sales across those 500 iPhone apps are outside the US, and again, often in parts of the world with little or no access to our books in printed form. This is an opportunity to grow our audience and reach into parts of the world that we could not otherwise profitably serve. And again, because this is a global market, there's little reason to limit it to English language content, of course. This is one of the books published by O'Reilly Verlag, our German subsidiary. And there are about a dozen of these titles now available worldwide through the App Store. Here's a screenshot from the German language version of one of our apps. I know I've been talking a lot about mobile markets, but it's important to put some numbers around the size of the emerging opportunity. This is data from a company called Flurry, which provides tools to mobile developers. According to their data, at this rate, by the end of 2009, the App Store will easily surpass 100,000 apps, and in fact, it recently did. To put that in context, the App Store now carries more items than the world's largest retailer, Walmart, which merchandises about 100,000 items per store. As far back as March of this year, we were paying close attention to the activity in the books category of the iPhone App Store, when it really started growing. It's worth noting that there was no books category when the App Store launched. Apple added it later in response to the high number of book apps being submitted and downloaded. At last check, books are now the #2 category after games in the App Store worldwide in terms of the number of apps available. The iPhone rightfully gets most of the attention when it comes to smartphones and mobile marketplaces, especially in the US. But when you take a closer look at the data, it's becoming clear that phones running the open source Android operating system will be a major player in the next 12 to 18 months. This data is also from Flurry, and they're seeing a noticeable increase in Android projects relative to iPhone projects. Draw those lines out, and they meet within 2 years. Some estimates are that by next year, there will be as many devices in the market running Android as there are iPhones. And here's some more data, again from that same study, which shows the growth among users of ebook reading applications on smartphones, now more than 3 million. We are also moving into Android too, with more than 200 books available in the Android market. We'll have as many or more Android apps as iPhone apps before the end of the year. Again, the customer feedback on these has been quite positive. Great book, great format to read it. Totally agree with the previous commenter. The book content is good and practical, and the reader itself is quite nice. Mobile markets also mean the opportunity to generate early interest in new releases. For us, it's a constant battle to try and get our books on the shelves when new software releases. This is from an internal email thread about what we could do to promote sales of a book about Apple's new Snow Leopard operating system. I wonder if we accelerate this pocket guide into an iPhone app for $1.99 and at least get mind share and some market presence while our other books are coming out. I bet this could boost our iPhone app visibility too. That was from one of our associate publishers. By the end of the day, the app version was assembled, and by the next business day, it was submitted for approval to Apple, even though the final files had not yet been sent to press. Nearly all of our books are available in digital form before they're in the bookstore, which gives us days and sometimes weeks of extra sales worldwide. And again, to underscore the global nature of these emerging mobile markets for digital media, here's the geographic breakdown for sales of that app. you can see that in this case, less than 1/3 of sales have been in the US. Nearly 1/4 of sales were in Italy, where the book was ranked #1 in the books category of the Italian App Store for several days. One benefit of publishing as a mobile app is that you get to take advantage of the built-in features of the phone. Here's one of our apps about how to get noticed on YouTube. Again, on the right, you'll see a page of content, and near the top, a hyperlink to another chapter within the book. Hyperlinks to web pages open up the built-in web browser, of course. But notice that other hyperlink in the middle of the page. It's a link to YouTube. And what video player does an iPhone already come with? That's right. Clicking those links brings up YouTube videos right on the iPhone. And when you're done watching the video, you can just click right back to where you left off in the book. That is a book behaving like the web that it is now a part of. And it's the single most important thing that we can do with our content as we prepare to make it available in digital formats. But making book content web-friendly and porting it to digital devices and formats is just the first step. This is a new medium. These devices have eyes and ears and mouths. They have a compass, and they know where they are in the world, and they respond to touch, and they have a nearly always-on web connection. How do you rethink content in the context of a device like that? My colleague at O'Reilly, Joe Weichert, who some of you may have read his blog, said it very well when comparing the current state of digital books to the transitional period of another popular medium, television. The first TV shows were basically radio programs on the television, until someone realized that TV was a whole new medium. E-books should not just be print books delivered electronically. And the same has been true of other media. Many of the first films merely recorded plays performed on a stage. It took time for those working in this new medium to understand there were entirely new characteristics that set it apart from theatrical performance. Multiple cameras, lighting and staging, special effects, these all evolved with the changing medium. Here is a fantastic example of someone starting to really take advantage of what a device like the iPhone can do. A few years ago, this product might have been a series of small printed guides to birds of different regions. You would take one of those printed books out with you and try to match the moving, singing bird in your binoculars to the static photo and description on the printed page. But with this app, and there's a series of them covering different regions of North America, you can quickly drill down along a variety of characteristics, and you can play the actual bird call from the app to help you identify what you're seeing. It's conceivable that eventually you will just hold up the phone and let the app see or hear the bird to help you identify it. How well do you think those small printed guides would stack up next to apps like that? And the opportunities today aren't just in new devices or new formats, but also in new business models. You may have seen news recently that Disney is now making a library of their children's books available for subscription access online. Subscriptions and memberships are just one way to try new methods of offering content. And while Disney got a lot of press and attention for their new program, the underlying approach looked quite familiar to us. Earlier, I mentioned Safari Books Online, which was launched in 2001 during the last recession. It's a joint venture with Pearson Technology Group, offering online subscription access to 10,000 books and videos. It is now our second largest sales channel for books after only Amazon. It is bigger for us than the largest U.S. retail book chain, Barnes & Noble. And there's a mobile version of Safari as well, which makes it an even more valuable product for subscribers who are increasingly carrying smartphones with them and now have access to those same 10,000 books from anywhere there's a web connection, which is quickly becoming just about everywhere. The influence of the web doesn't start after a book is done and ready to be sold and distributed. The web is changing everything, and that certainly includes the way that we write and collaborate. In that sense, we're following readers to the point of content creation, giving them the opportunity to become writers and collaborators, not just readers. A few years ago, some developers who were working on a book about Django, an open source framework for building complex websites, used their own software to build a system to solicit feedback on their book as it was being written. See those little bubbles next to each paragraph on the left? Those show how many comments were made on each paragraph. This is a book that we published late last year about a very obscure programming language called Haskell. It's also now available as an iPhone app in the App Store. Here's a screenshot from that book's website, which was also custom built by its authors. They didn't just write a book and then post it online. They updated the book as it was being written. And again, as you can see from the links here, they asked for and got feedback on every single paragraph in the entire book. Clicking on one of those comment links pulls up a dialogue like this one, familiar to anyone who's commented on a blog post. Every single paragraph in the entire book. Here's a few numbers from the authors about the feedback they received. Note that most of the people who commented, which was over 800, left their name so they could be acknowledged in the book. We printed their names in the preface. You can see that 21 people left more than 75 comments each. 75 comments is as good or better than the level of comments and feedback that we get from paid technical reviewers. And typically we only have 2 or 3 of those for a book. So this book got 10 times the level of deep review as most of our books, for free, and is a better book because of it. People want desperately to contribute, to collaborate, and to be part of a community. And if you help provide the context for that community, you will be rewarded. As I said earlier, for most of the history of the printed word, reading has been an intensely social and public activity. And the web is bringing us back to those roots and extending that social nature to the writing process. We liked what the authors of that book did so much that we built our own similar open feedback system for use with other books. This is the second title to use our open feedback publishing system. There are 4 more now as well. And there have already been hundreds of comments made on this manuscript. It's a book about building iPhone apps with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The book is also already available as an app, months before it will be finished, much less published. Customers who purchase the app, of course, get updates for free. The book is also available already as an ebook, which is regularly updated. This has expanded the opportunities that we have to generate revenue for a book before it is published, and at the same time, make sure it's a book that people will find useful. But will people pay for something that is also available for free? These are lifetime sales for 6 of our books. It's no Harry Potter, but each one of these is absolutely a success for us as a publisher. Every single one of these books is available completely for free on the web, in many cases right on our own website. One of the things we're learning about content is that people don't always pay just for the content itself. Instead, they also pay for packaging and convenience. Here's the way that we're starting to look at the entire process of publishing. These are no longer print books that we happen to also sell digitally. They are digital books that we might also sell in print. Remember, if the World Wide Web were in person, it would barely be old enough to have voted in last year's US presidential elections. On the other hand, in about 30 years, no one under the age of 55 will remember a world without the web. We're just at the beginning of a transformation as important as the printing press was 500 years ago. There's enormous challenges, to be sure, but there's also extraordinary opportunities for those willing to take risks and do what Alan Kay suggests here. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. Thank you.